I'm your host for the evening. My name's Matt, but it's not about me, it's about the poets. We're here to celebrate, the anthology, These Are the Hands, which is a collection of amazing poetry, written by our wonderful NHS. There's a team of us behind this, as well as the poets. There's myself, there's Louise, there's Katie. Before we dive in, just a few words from some of the other team behind this. I'm going to hand over to Louise very briefly to say a few words. Louise, are you there?
I am. So I'm just letting my heart rate go down after all of that. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And have you ever thought about what it takes to run a national health service? And you might think of management structures and budgets, spreadsheets and efficiencies. For this evening, we're going to set those things aside and consider something just as important, if not more so, the people who make our NHS run. These Are the Hands is an anthology of poetry written by NHS staff from up and down the country, from everywhere along the career path and from all areas of the health service. It takes its name from a poem by Michael Rosen of the same name, which was written to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the NHS. Michael also wrote the foreword to the book. And as I think most of us know, Michael Rosen is currently in hospital with COVID-19. So we're thinking of him tonight and we're sending him and his family our love. You're about to hear beautiful and moving poems written and read by NHS staff. Thank you to all the contributors for sharing yourselves and your readings with us. Thank you so much. A huge thank you also to Katie O'Neill and Deborah Almer, co-editors of this extraordinary collection of work. And massive thanks to Nadia Kingsley at Fairacre Press, who published it. So without you giving your time and energy to bringing this to the rest of us, we wouldn't be able to enjoy it. So thank you. Thousands of copies of this book have been sold worldwide now. And you can buy a copy of the anthology if you don't already have one. You can buy it online from major booksellers and independent book retailers. And all the profits from the book go to NHS Charities Together, the COVID19 Emergency Fund. I'm not going to talk for much longer because, as Matt said, it's not about me. This is an opportunity for all of us to listen, to really listen to those who spend their working lives listening to other people and caring for other people. And this is an opportunity to absorb their lived experience into our bodies, which is one of the magical things about poetry. These poems are honest. They don't shy away from difficult subjects. They deal with birth and death and everything in between. So if you feel you need to take a moment away from the screen or the readings, please feel free to do so. There's a lot to take in here. Incredibly, these poems managed to skip with lightness and humanity too. So with that, I'd like to introduce Katie O'Neill, who is a co-editor of the anthology. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Louise. Thank you so much for hosting this event. I just wanted to talk a bit about how the anthology came about. I work as an NHS GP in Hackney and started a project with the Royal College of GPs and the Worshipful Society of Apothecaries called the Bigger Picture Collaboration. And that's really looking at how we can improve healthcare professional well-being and patient care through the arts and humanities. And one of our first events was a poetry event. And it was there that Deborah Almer and I became friends and the idea for the book was born. And we felt that the anthology gave a unique way of giving NHS staff a voice and hearing their stories and very personal experiences. And we also wanted to raise money for NHS charities. We had hundreds of submissions from all over the UK and from staff at all stages of their careers. And what was great was that, as well as doctors and nurses, you also get to hear in this anthology from NHS staff whose voices often go unseen and unsung. like occupational therapists, clinical scientists, domestic cleaning staff. And I think in the midst of this pandemic, we've never been more aware of the importance of the NHS. And I hope this anthology and this evening really gets across how vital it is to appreciate the humanity and compassion of the people at its heart and who we depend on to hold the NHS together. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie. So I'm going to hand over now to Matt Matheson, who I know as a friend, a fantastic speaking coach, and most importantly, an all-round lovely person who is going to guide us through the readings this evening. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much, Louise, and thank you, Katie, and Nadia, and the team, the publishers, and thank you to the poets, and thank you to you. There are literally hundreds of people who are joining at the moment. It's great. We almost can't believe that this idea was kind of hatched only 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we've got to the point where it was out on BBC News this afternoon on the radio. So it's just wonderful to be here. We have a lot of poetry to get through, probably about an hour and a half's worth. So that's a lot to sit through. So we are going to have a short interval halfway through. But as Louise said, please, allow yourself to dip in and out if that feels the right way to consume it, rather than having to sit here through the whole thing. But feel free to do that as well. We have a chat window here. I encourage you, post your reflections there. If there's anything you like, anything that resonates with you, let's try and get a second conversation taking place in the chat stream here in Zoom. And we have a hashtag, poetry for NHS. So if you're one of these Twitter kind of people, then feel free to share any comments or thoughts about what you hear on there, and it'd be lovely to have a little bit of a conversation taking place there as well. But that's probably all really that I need to say, and it's just, last thing to say is probably just that it's an honor to be part of this project, especially at a time now when it's even more relevant, I think, visibly than perhaps it's been seen historically, which is really, really a shame. But it's wonderful now that everybody is front and center, and I hope that this event and this anthology goes some way to keeping everybody who does this amazing work for us front and center for the nation, and everybody who uses it needs it, and is part of this wonderful initiative. So without further ado, let's get straight into these wonderful poems. First up, we have Margaret Adkins with First Last Offices, 1979.
First Last Offices, 1979. We were goslings, pushed to the front of the skein, made to flap our wings. As hatchlings, we had emerged more turtle than goose. Able to turn to salt water, we were chosen for our instinct to forge alone. One November night, sounds of sleep and mattresses bowing filled the cardiac ward, unaffected by an old man's death in a side room. I was alone until another first-year student was sent to help. We were 8 months into our training. Unsure and timid in the ritual of last offices, we started to wash his cooling body, whispering, telling him we were in flight. In our first week, we had been warned to see ourselves without glory. One held him as the other washed him and dried him, keeping him safe in the air, shielding him with a sheet until we laid him back down in his shroud. We did as we'd been taught on a class dummy and remembered right. Our last offices were nodded at when Night Sister descended and tugged at our flesh, raptor-like. We repeatedly closed his eyelids. Our tears smarted at homemade jam sandwiches, wrapped in greaseproof paper, unopened and fresh in his locker. The handmade get well card for Grandad, we saved in a plastic bag marked belongings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. So next up we have Ramiza Zabari with Flexor Digitorum.
Flexor Digitorum. It feels wrong for hands to slice through hands, to pick apart the fascia with your fingertips. I wonder, is there a tenderness to this? These scissors are sharp enough to cut through skin. These same hands pore over pages. How to learn? They sift flour, and mittens mind the heat as the oven bakes dough into warm kneadings. At weekends, these hands beat the life out of drums. But those tender, frozen fingers won't wind their digits through a curl of hair again. Won't make the air sing piano melodies, won't pick the hated peppers off a pizza. They won't lift a cigarette to weary lungs or drive to work in morning traffic after sifting through pockets too full to find the keys. Our hands intertwine. We dance a lover's dance. Hesitant at first, then those fingers take to the air again. What a teacher. And I'm just learning the first steps until I take the floor myself. Your hands having made an imprint on mine, touching the lives of so many others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ramiza. So following Ramiza, we have Roger Bloor with In All Those Years at Medical School.
In all those years at medical school, they never told me that sitting with the dying was the human thing to do. I discovered that myself one night, behind the screens, around a bed, at the end of the medical ward. They never told me that all the family would want was just for me to go upstairs and close her eyes and place a Bible in her hand. I discovered that myself one night in the bedroom of that terraced house. They never told me that 50 years later, I would still remember the name of the patient who died before we could stop his bleeding. I discovered that myself last night, awaking from a dream-filled, restless sleep. They never told me how easily I would shed that tear when a patient crossed the street to shake my hand and wish me well for my retirement. I discovered that myself today and thought that was a human thing for him to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roger. So next we have Helen Shepherd with Opening.
Opening. A gestation reaches its timely conclusion and her muscled hammock softens, slackens. I am with her wet slip, hands quiet, ready. A head down pressure, spine to belly, her womb now taut as a new balloon. I hear heartbeat, code, pains, come, go. A tuft of hair appears, recedes at ease. Her skin peels over a spongy first frown, and I map read, headland, suture, fontanelle. A flicker of eyelids, phantom of a new. Her hands clutch knees, chin tucks in. I prop her heel on my hip, bear down. A nose tips, bloodline, too early to know. Her guttural sounds, deep, old as Eve. I breathe in rhythm between her pushes. A fold of ear unfurls, lips pucker apart. Her fingers stretch over, stroke baby hair. I loosen cord, a rough touch can mutilate. A breath out moment, bruised blue runs to red. Her opening, forgotten, already starts to close. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so next up we have Emma Storr with 6 Week Check.
Thanks. 6 Week Check. I wake you, unpeel your clothes to hold you naked in my hands. You look surprised at being new. I murmur nonsense while I note your symmetry and serious gaze, the texture, tone and feel of you. Your brain is heavy, busy growing like a walnut in its shell. Your fontanelles are soft to touch. I auscultate your rapid heart, impatient, tapping at your ribs. You startle in expected ways, fling your arms, reflexes brisk. You turn to noise. Each orifice is present, patent, hard at work. I hand you back to anxious arms, catch your baked cub-like scent. I circle normal on my list. You yawn and fall back into dreams, unaware you've passed my tests. We won't need to meet again. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Emma. So continuing the evening, we have Rachel Playforth with Cleft.
Cleft. Such small hands, the cannula pins you down, alien weight on a wrist slipping its plastic tag. Twice you've been under, travelling solo, to that place beyond strip light, thin sheets, lab smell. Voyager, pilot, your tiny craft in orbit round yourself. First time back, you're screaming, black and blue and clamped tight shut. We hardly notice your face made new. Second time, a frequent flyer, you wake and smile, but will not sleep again for weeks, or so it feels. 4 years later, in feverish nights, you find my bed and press against me, lip to lip, until we drift together to the place each found alone, and dream again, the dream that binds us like a stitch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Next up, we have Vicky Thomas with We Mourn Your Children Too.
We mourn your children too. We mourn your children too. We do. We cry. We try to make each touch a loving one, for short lives should be full of love. We cry. We do. We try to keep our grief walled up, not stealing yours, to meet your eyes steadily, to find the joy wherever it can fall. We cry. We try. We do. We're honoured when we help you say goodbye. The farewells break us too. The cracks are how the light gets out. You hate us, love us, hug us, blame us. You wonder how we do it. So do we. We try. We cry. We mourn your children too. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. So next we have Audrey Arden-Jones with I Speak for Nurses Worldwide.
I speak for nurses worldwide, who in summer suns under burning skies hold hands with the dying despite the sores, who in fog-grey mists of locked-up wards talk gently to the confused, the paranoid, who unclip, clip, check and check again the mystical noises of the hospital gadgets, who speak in soft-sounding ocean voices, soothing secrets of unconscious minds, who in the rush of busy early mornings visit newborns and the homebound sick, who guard the cot sides of a fevered child, catching dragonflies by the garden pond, who tuck in safely an old lady she thinks she's picking buttercups on her sheet. I speak for nurses worldwide who honour nurse heroines of their day, of any day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Audrey, for your words there. So next up this evening, we have Debs Butler with Dream a Little Dream of Me.
Dream a little dream of me. I'm not Ginger Rogers, but he is Fred Astaire, his hand in the small of my back leading me around the floor. No spotlights following us, not this time, just the shuffle of his slippers on the lino and the hum of his tune in my ear. He stops me again and asks where she is. I tell him she's coming. He tenses. The muscles in his shoulders are clenching. Where is she? Where are you hiding her? Why am I here? Are you the police? I smile, say I'm Debs and I'm the nurse. Shall we dance? His shoulders drop from his ears. He smiles, takes my hand. We dance. Past drip stands, cleaning trolleys, plastic chairs, beds and the shadows within. We dance. Things aren't what they used to be. Jobs, the good price of a good bit of bacon, the mines, his memory. We dance. People don't dance, not like they used to. He asks where she is. I tell him she's coming. She hasn't danced with him for 5 years, will never dance with him again, and whilst he still remembers how, we dance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have Frank Blakemore next with The Laying Out to Come.
The laying out to come. He was a vagrant. He was a gentleman of the road, of no fixed abode. There was no other to witness his passing but me. He was ancient, I was young, I was privileged, he was poor. I had friends, he had none. All we had in common was our gender and this small curtained space filled with the noise of healing broken lives. Lying in sister-satisfying pristine bed, proud of my hospital corners, his life making its final passage through his lips with only me there to witness it. Am I intruding? Am I getting this wrong? Would he rather be alone? What will I want when it's my turn? Will I be an unmourned vagrant of no fixed abode and unknown DOB? Will the only witness to my passing be a naive young male nurse learning what intimacy means? For what could be more intimate than sharing the ending of a life? That and the laying out to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, Frank. So following Frank, we have Wendy French with The Pattern.
Thank you. The pattern. Blue tacked against the window, translucent paper, cut and folded to create a dress for the young girl who dreams in her hospital bed in morphine-induced sleep. Saturday is her wedding day. Nurses' hands work against the dark to match the pattern to white silk with pinned-on satin roses. The bride will be wheeled down corridors to where she'll make promises to have and to hold, knowing a life might last a week. Still the chaplain takes her through her vows. Favourite nurses will be maids of honour, carry the intravenous drip, ensure the wheelchair doesn't catch her dress. Night bears down upon the ground. Off-duty nurses gather, smooth, tack and stitch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next we have Leo Dragstead with Sometimes Things Get Heavy on the Night Shift.
You speak of loneliness, how your bandages bind you up tight like a paper doll hug, how people are always up for a fight, but that they don't like to sit through a recovery that ends in better but not fixed. How you've been lying on disposable sheets so long you feel a little disposable too. That you still see the skyline when you close your eyes, but hear more monitor beeps than birdsong. You say the lights below your 4th floor window look like stars to you now, as if you've already crawled your way to heaven. But that can't be, because in heaven you can get a full night's sleep. You say you prefer a view that overlooks the train tracks, that you imagine walking along them and never looking back. That you imagine walking barefoot, that cold metal is better than nerve damage, but you can have both in a wheelchair. You say that hope outside of its packet can get stale in hospital rooms. And your lips are tinged blue when you speak of all the beautiful lives that have touched you, but your words come out black and purple till the whole room is tender as a bruise. Then you steam up the window just sighing and dreaming, and wipe it all away to keep watching, as your alternate lives curl up and burst into lights and disperse like old friends into the night.
Thank you very much. So next up we have Anna Bosanquet with The Gondoliers.
The Gondoliers. They are the unsung heroes. Just watch their skill, their strength, their agility and grace. They are proud, they are independent, they don't like you helping them. They are macho, they are charming, they have golden rings and medallions on their hairy chests, earrings, brow rings and tattoos. They have big muscles and they sing beautifully while balancing the beds with professional splendor. They are the hospital porters. They are the gondoliers of NHS. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. So next up, we have Sarah L. Dixon with Media Room.
Thank you. Media Room. I wear a hat and a lab coat, stained with crystal violet, saffronin, Congo red. Load up the autoclave with selenite F broth or saline, ready to boil away all signs of life. I fill the preparator with choking Campylobacter powder, fossil blood, and small secret vials. Each batch of plastic plates clatters as it stacks into the carousel. Once set, they are transferred to the fridge, so fluids, swabs and feces can be spread across sleek agar. McConkey, mannitol, pertussis. Growth patterns and the regular crunch of antibiotic discs can predict a cure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So next we have Lorna Faye Dunsire with Leaps and Bounds.
Leaps and bounds. We share this space, here and safe. She talks of knots and silence, her past creeping up on her, tying her down, taking her voice. She asks for little, a place where her demons aren't pressed up against her. She spent years dislocated from herself. Cruelty has pushed her till she's fixated on pills that numb, cigarettes searing skin, alcohol dulling the ache within, a blade to cut and any stillness the noose might bring. So We plan her escape. I tempt imaginings of a future fate. She craves a cocktail of understanding, calmness and adrenaline to medicate her internal raging. Together, we take time to play. With trampolines, we bounce away the trauma into a single moment of okayness. She's more than just a survivor. Not fragile, this ferocious young woman is whole but hurting. Our hearts are thumping. We are breathless and so perfectly normal. She belly laughs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorna. So next up, we have Roshni B. Harry with Invincible.
Thank you. Invincible. I think of the little girl who will wear this spinal jacket, its candy pink hardness, coated with butterflies, forcing her kyphotic spine into conformity. Clasped between its two halves like a turtle shell, it will keep her protected from the taunts of others. Cripple, hunchback, these names will bounce off her new suit of armour like ricocheting bullets. Inside, she starts to grow, straightens like a sapling seeking the sun. She begins to feel invincible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roshni. So taking us on in the evening, we have Denise Bundred with Open Heart Surgery.
Open heart surgery. The scalpel traces a stroke down your chest. String of rubies swells from the incision. A saw no larger than a jeweler's diamond wheel opens your sternal bone, 12 days old, follows the line already drawn. Your parents stray back to their room, make instant coffee, spoon too much sugar, add too little milk. Sit beside the window, watch others stroll towards the hospital. Lives continue when they should stop. Wait for you to come from Theatre 7. The surgeon retracts ribs, connects you to the machine which supplies oxygen, removes waste, keeps the balance, cools you to the point where metabolism lingers, heart stops. Suspended at 18 degrees centigrade, you hover on a micro scale, weighing scant carrots. Hand in hand, they gravitate to the kitchen, seek others who have waited. Your mother pours cornflakes, digs a spoon in, stirs it round. Your father, eyes fixed on nothing, forces tight jaws to chew toast, swallows hard. Loop lenses magnify the surgeon's visual field. He detaches each transposed artery from its valve, switches it to where it should arise, reattaches coronaries with thread finer than your mother's hair. He stitches quickly. Every second is liquid gold dropped from matching rings onto a scrubbed floor. The perfusionist runs warm fluid through your veins. At 34 degrees, your heart begins to beat spontaneously. Half flow encourages you to take the strain. Off bypass, your heart surges, flies solo. Blood pressure sags, recovers, transforms your skin from ivory to coral. Your mother crushes a cigarette, kicks it under bushes, prays to a God she didn't believe in last week. The surgeon stretches his neck, steps away from the table. Can someone order me a cheese and pickle sandwich before the canteen closes? I'll see his parents on the ward in 15 minutes. He removes his headlight and glasses, lowers them into the wooden box, wipes his face on the hem of his gown. It's difficult to express our thanks for all you have done over the past year for our beautiful son. He has brought endless pleasure, amazed us with his energy. Long may it last. Thank you.
Beautifully spoken words there. Thank you so much. So next we have Jen Lua with 3 a.m. in A&E.
3 a.m. in A&E. Listen, you have come here for answers, and surely you realize there is little here but dust, bone, splinter, the sweltering heat, the small white fan languishing, the air, the sweat gleaming on the nape of a nurse's neck. Darkness outside, and here the lighthouse, frenzied and feral. Where is the meaning in an open wound? Where the cartography in salt water, iron, broken tooth and copper, all the splinters of a long-gone comet split us, skin to skin. What do I have to give you? But what makes us more than tendon, weft of tendon, capillary, gyrus? What makes us tend to each other in the burning of the world? Look at one another still and say, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Is there not joy in that stubborn gladness, tenderness with which I measure your wound between thumb and finger, stitch needle through skin, chart the stars of your fear and mine? Shall we not call out in the darkness one to another? Shall we not try strike the phosphorus in our bones to light? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Renee Liang now to come up with Birth.
Good morning. It's 8 a.m. in my office in Special Care Baby Unit, and I'm calling in from Auckland, New Zealand. And this is a poem called Birth. I sit in my dark office, see sharp shadowed spikes of exotic palm slung against noon-drunk walls. I am waiting for a baby. Not mine, you understand, that is not part of my contract, but the baby of a woman who lies gasping, unheard, unseen, around the corner. Her baby sits, cheeks cradled in the basket of her pelvis, not knowing which way to turn, not knowing that the correct way to enter the world is to look both ways, then go head first. Too late to turn now. This baby listens to the pained panting of its mother's heart, feels the roof of her diaphragm tapping fast staccato beats onto the small, wet tuft of its hair, like urgent rain. Its feet are cold. This baby, you understand, is not my responsibility, not yet. I am not the midwife. My hands do not slide slippery and slimy up between the redness of thighs, the warm something poured into a metal bucket on the floor. Do not touch the small white toes resting in the perineum, as if waiting for a bus which is late. I only watch. Do not move. Do not clang together forceps like giant tongs, lifting the grey morsel out into the still world. He, for now we can see it is a boy, lies naked on my towel. He is an unfolded nautilus, still dreaming under the sea, listening to the slow thud of his mother's heart, the pulse of the mask on his face, the quickening beat of my heart, of my breath, as I try to reach his will to live. I push each square digital second into his waiting chest, time clinging like mucus to my fingers. At last, he coughs and breathes. His tiny eyes open and watch. His heart flutters delicately under the membrane of my stethoscope. Now, I sit in my dark office, pushing words out with patient contractions of my pen. Somewhere in the hospital, a mother breastfeeds. I write. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and so wonderful you could join us from quite literally the opposite end of the earth. Thank you.
I'm quite literally going to look after a newborn baby now as well.
Oh, amazing. Well, well done to you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So before we move into our interval, we have Andy Jackson with Infirmary.
Infirmary. The hospital, a funneled bulk against the city sky, is rousing from its broken sleep and opening an eye. Its crew of nurses whisper at their stations of the night as housemen dream of bed sheets in the dawning light. People step from growling buses to its doors, past porters and the kindnesses nobody trains them for, to grey-lit corridors, the clinics, and the rooftop views to meet the surgeons waiting with their freight of news. Here, the cool infusion of a measured dose of care is dripped into each theatre and ward, while everywhere the daily miracles of medicine have their tale to tell, of how what makes the city is what makes the city well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. Wow, so we have 40 readings tonight, and that's the point at which we've reached 20. And we've covered so much scope, so much material, both medically and geographically, I think it can be said. We said we'd have a very short interval at the middle point just to allow people to get teas, coffees, anything that they might need to. So we're just going to take 5 minutes and we'll start back at exactly 20 past. For those who are staying, please do post your comments into the chat window. I'd love to hear which poem stood out for you. Have any themes resonated with you? Has it brought up any memories from your own experience of being with the NHS in some shape or form? Do you have people that this is maybe relative to or close to home for you? Let us know in the chat window. It'd be lovely to hear what's happening. There's some great stuff going on there, and there's literally hundreds of comments already, so please add to them. As mentioned before, we also have a hashtag for Twitter, hashtag poetry for NHS. So please feel free to tweet out about the experience as well. Yeah, so grab your teas, grab your coffees, chat away in the chat room. We'll be starting again in exactly 5 minutes at 20 past 9 for the second half of this wonderful celebration of the These Are the Hands Anthology. Thank you, guys. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. I make that 20 past now. Thank you for staying with us. It's been a wonderful evening so far. Lots of incredible poetry, as I said, covering all sorts of areas of the health service. We're going to hear even more. Another 20 poems by another wonderful 20 NHS key workers taking us through for the rest of the evening. For those that have just joined, please do share your thoughts with what you hear in the chat window here, or if you want to use the hashtag on Twitter, it's hashtag NHS for poetry. We also have a website, which is poetryfornhs.co.uk, where we'll be sharing the video of this afterwards. But we're also requesting that you wonderful members of the public submit your poems in response to that. So if you feel that you want to submit some words about your love for the NHS, that's where you can do it, at poetryfornhs.co.uk. So moving back into the poetry for this evening, I'm going to welcome Penny Shutt with Your Scan Results. Over to you, Penny.
Your scan results. I hesitate at the doorway to your side room. Your scan report hangs at my side, leaden with fate's shame. The cleaner bustles around your bed. Hope this weather keeps up for the weekend, you say, nodding at the sun streaming in over your drab NHS sheets. Shifting rays bounce off the fluorescent green cover of the bumper puzzle book you've set aside whilst you chat. Were you always this friendly before you were diagnosed? Are word searches how you'd spend these last few days if you knew? I lean in the doorway. Don't close the door, pull up a chair, or ask when your wife will next be in. Instead, I ask about those painkillers we started you on this morning, which you're glad have finally kicked in. The results of that scan aren't back yet. My words, flimsy as the paper that I fold with unshaking hands and retreat until Monday, leave you basking in the evening glow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Penny. So next we have Richard Westcott with Words Fail Us.
Words fail us. Heavily he sits in front of me, rolling up his trousers. I lean forward to show interest, though the psoriasis is obvious, then fall back to let him speak. A moment of no words. Now tears tear the silence, ancient tears without words. Before words, there was a time of blessed inarticulacy, and still at times we're wordless. When words fail us, the baby cries. It's all he can do, which serves him for a while until we all get older, when words make themselves heard. Heavily, I sit in front of him, reaching out clumsily. I lean forward, then I turn away to the screen to give him a moment and me a break from tears, back to sound words and worlds. For him, some words from me of attempted comfort along with factual language. For me, relieved return to normality of speech. And another patient, soon enough, he leaves me wordless, heavy, in a loneliness we both now share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard, and welcome to some of the new people who are just joining us for this evening of poetry reading. Next, we have Rowena Warwick with Consultation.
Yes, consultation. 1. Sometimes, from this side of the desk, the air between us turns the palest grey, like it's too tired to listen or think of what comes next. 2. Once, in winter, there was an orange hue which drifted past the window, caught us both in its slipstream. 3. Perhaps it's the words I use, my standard phrases, navy blue, like school uniform in different hues, the way our mothers laundered us. 4. Occasionally, our gestures dance scarlet. They forget that red must be kept for emergencies or blood. 5. When I listen well, there is a green sparkle at all the interchanges. Nothing hangs on the cross-hatched lines. 6. Now, even when your words reach me, I am lost in darkness. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words there. So next up this evening, we have Neil Douglas with When I Came to Visit You at Home.
When I came to visit you at home, your dog's eyes always followed me around the room, showing me to my seat on your brown Parker Knoll, shining, intensely black, but somehow still, and I found that stillness reassuring as we sat and talked about bunions and loneliness and the irrelevant necessity of Viagra. Because I was used to arriving at other visits anxious, armpits damp, to be greeted by the muscled thud of a growling torso launched against the door frame inside. He's only being playful, the other owners used to say, between the snarls, the barks, the saliva dripped like wet elastic in time to the beat of my fear. But then there was your dog, good dog, so affectionate, so obedient, so still, a tribute to your years of loving care and the almost obsolete art of a Bow Road taxidermist. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So next up this evening, we have Khadija Ruth with Care.
Care. 1. This touch is warm and makes me human. I wash your back softly, rainbows flicker on filmy bubbles, liquid silver lights your skin underneath. I see the cogs of your spine, trace the groove of your shoulder blades, history not yet written in your bones. This touch is warm and makes you human. I will make space for you, as wide, as deep, and as unending as you need. You will fit. 2. We must make hard choices, tough decisions. We must create a new landscape where the clock ticks. We must package efficiently, pull tight, and be fit for purpose, with targets translated through the prism of spreadsheets and calculations. Our fates will be determined by distant constellations. 3. I am paid by the minute. The clock ticks. Each visit should take half an hour, including travel. Each spoonful pushed 5 seconds. Each wash 6 minutes. In this job, it's important to know long division. Traffic's been bad today. This old lady's new. Haven't got time for a slow one. Hurry up. Haven't got time to chat or listen to you speak or weep. My clock's ticking. You won't see another winter. Hurry up. Take off your top. I'll flannel your back. Don't make me late. I'm paid by the minute. The clock ticks. You will fit. 4. My bones are brittle, my skin translucent, but I feel. I was born with only a heartbeat and cry, yet she cradled me and her love was a lullaby. Now what they send me doesn't account for the loneliness of watching dry light arc the heavens from sunrise into night. I'm cold. I yearn for warmth, a familiar voice, a touch that's kind, someone to wash my back, to hold me in mind. I won't see another winter. The clock ticks and nothing waits. I am lost. Remote stars write my fate. Who should cost my time's value to me? Who says how much I am worth? Who sees me as I am or once was? Who is there to care? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words, Khadija. So following on this evening, we have Charlotte Ansell with Treating an Epidemic with 1 bottle of pills.
Treating an epidemic with 1 bottle of pills. The bucket in the corner of the photocopier room, collecting drips from exposed electric cables in the roof, is full. The families in the waiting room spill over too. They don't need to be reminded, they are the lucky ones. It's like bailing out a cruise ship with an egg cup when the industrial bilge pump fails, or trying to treat a child who broke every bone in their body with plasters, or being asked to bake a cake for 8, maybe 10 people, and more than 100 show up. We find ourselves with heads as full of patience as a Middle Passage ship of slaves, afraid when we dock, only 75% will be alive. We are deafened by the clamour of those voices, the dreams in which we tried to catch a spinning plates, the suicides. What if it was your child we told you had to wait a year, in which time their problems would have mushroomed from moderate to severe? Don't think we can't hear the hollowed out echoes of our sorries, our hands tied behind our backs. Can't work miracles with 5 loaves and 2 fishes, but still the crowd refused to leave. We are an army, marching on nothing but blistered feet, infected water and freeze-dried food packs. But still we have to battle. For the girls with arms like lined paper, the boys with no words. The fathers who didn't know their kids needed them, the mothers too full of holes themselves to sew up their children. All the pills and the starving, the hair pulled out and nails bled ragged, the pain that can't be known about, that turns these kids savage. Ones who only speak through drawings or threats or self-mutilation. We could hear them above the din, cut ourselves in half. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Had a slight technical hitch there, but I think we managed to get the end of it. So thank you so much. Next up, we have David Blaine with What More Could We Have Done?
What more could we have done? He hung up the phone that Thursday night. Hours later, he was dead. I replay his words over and over again. What more could I have said? I knew him well, or so I thought. His battles could have been won. I listened, prescribed, referred, reviewed. What more could I have done? Months have passed, but nightmares have not. I see many patients, but think of just one. There without the grace of God went I. What more could I have done? A death of despair, the tally rises. Someone's father, brother, son. Hard to reach or easy to ignore. What more could we have done? What drives a man to end his life? The darkest thoughts, nowhere to run. If we are all responsible to all for all, what more could we have done? Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. So next up we have Chris Woods with Consultation.
Consultation. He doesn't look too good. Suit not as snappy. His tie's a bit frayed. He doesn't look happy. Domestic difficulties, staff shortages, cuts. In the driving seat no longer. Driven nuts. He doesn't look too hot. Has he been up all night? I'll be supportive. Doc, are you all right? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. So next up this evening, we have Emma Halliday with Burnt Out.
Burnt out. He grew skin like armour and steered conversation, defend off attention. As hours started blurring, his friendships unravelled, relationships crumbled. He battled the feelings, would never acknowledge this wasn't his failing. The nights began burning. He drained wine like coffee to cope with the next shift. He clipped on a work smile, and colleagues remembered him never complaining. When anyone queried, he stiffened the face mask and was always fine. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So continuing the evening, we have Sybil Ruth with The Upholding.
Carry me the way you used to carry me. I will sail the unpredictable tide of your breath. It may have been over a day since your mouth sipped water, took a sliver of fruit. Your teeth now live in a labelled pot, and your tongue cannot frame any sound, but all this is of no account. Get up, Climb out of your bed. You are to be my chariot. Even though your legs are swollen, your skin is yellow as the leaves of autumn. The urine that you pass is dark and bloody. I know the magic of the body. Rise up in my name and walk. Come back like Lazarus to carry me. By the flicker of an eye, agree. In a moment, I'm a young woman again, a child, a seed. Come away in your beautiful pajamas and carry me. We'll go stealing past the nurses' station, down the passage, through reception to the car park, which is filled with the scent of blossom from nearby gardens. So sweet and transient. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that, Sybil. So next up we have Carol Bromley with To My Cyst.
To my cyst. Flu set you going like a ticking bomb, growing in the cramped space between skull and brain, which I imagine as like a crack in a tunnel where a buddleia tries to flourish. You see them from trains, that urge to grow, or mushrooms in a shed. You had food and water, you would make it. I was your host, me, this me that cries and loves and is typing these black letters on infinite space. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. So following Carol, we have Your Adores with Day of the Results.
Day of the results. Dawn arrives at specified time. The and misses. A fox ambles down the middle of the road, except everything has changed. I sit in a room with no view, where thousands have sat before, heavy with the weight of days and nights of not knowing. Hearing the surgeon explain histology, that brooks no nuance, that shall have dominion, in a voice tempered with a kind of love for another human being. Watching his face, imagining the toll of giving bad news year after year, and when done, thanking, not for the news, but for the manner of the giving. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Yoram. So next we have Catherine Murray with Doctor to Patient.
Doctor to patient. In winter, I was sentenced to urgent treatment. Across the road, trees in the park stretched their stark branches into the grey sky. An icy gust herded me into the hospital. 4 windowless walls, poison siphoned into veins, hair on the floor, bile in my throat. During long, dark nights and lingering days, as fans purred and machines bleeped, I was transformed from doctor to patient. I yearned for outside. I craved control. I grieved for my old self. I was on the other side. At last, I emerged from my prison, and the world is brighter than I remembered. Across the road, trees in the park shimmer their leaves in the breeze, vibrant green boughs proclaiming renewed life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderfully spoken. So next we have Mel McAvoy with He Swims in the Silence.
He swims in the silence. You sat in a wheelchair looking down from a hospital window at people walking 7 floors below. A view from a diving board. You seemed too distant to turn when I introduced myself to your family. I came to discuss a place in the hospice. Lung cancer had found a way to squeeze your spine from the inside. Visitors spoke of your service to others. Nurses recalled how you taught them to swim as children in the local baths. Generations knew your patience, and for fun, you swam the lakes of Cumbria. Your wife said she felt you needed to talk, thought you were drowning out in an ocean somewhere, adrift from everywhere. When the door closed behind her, I sat and asked how you were doing. You looked out on the garden. We never spoke a word for 20 minutes. No splash of noise disturbed the hush. When she returned, you spoke first and said, "We've had a long chat and I feel ready." A whisper of mist upon the lake, and you waded out into the unthinkable. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your words there. So next up we have Giles Dornay with Seasons.
Seasons. That's just not my mum, he whispers, soft dark eyes, looking ahead and behind into another time and space. Outside, the trees stand bare, skeletal fingers gracefully twist, spiral and dance to a naked sky, a small crinkle of leaves at their roots. She sits, eyes closed, resting as an oxygen mask rasps its gifts into her failing lungs. A hard crag sits above her nipple. The land softens and muddies with the falling of the rain, the baked hardness of summer gone, and the world less sure underfoot. It's funny, he offers. I normally help tidy their houses after they've gone, being an estate agent and all, before his words fade back to silence. Pale sunshine lights up the day, branches clack and click with the passing of the breeze. Winter wears a different coat to summer. She did love a cigarette, he exhales, breathing into a tangled web of feeling. The elements pitter-patter gently on the window, singing softly the advent of yet another season. Thank you.
Thank you, Giles. So taking this on, we have Wendy Jane Walton with Home Visit.
Home visit. Not bad, she said, when asked about the pain. A touch of indigestion came on while stooping in caress of soil that lingers under fingernails. Defiant, resolute, she shut her eyes, hauling in breath to muffle down the toll of a heartbeat counting out. Returning from the pharmacy, he found her, already gone, just where she chattered in the blackthorn. I should She always said, when it happened, she wanted to be in the woods. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have Judith Wozniak with Albert.
Albert. He pulls his covers to his chin, pegs them with rusted fingers, his oxygen mask pushed up like the cap he wore in the Hussars. The consultant, a voice smooth as molasses, peers over half moons to persuade Albert to take his tablets. He cups his ear, scrunches his face. In the night hush of the ward, light spills from the nurse's station. Albert beckons me, says not to worry, he's on his own now. I like the way he always calls me maid, despite the new stiff white coat carving crescents in my calves. He worries it's past my bedtime. While he sleeps, I slide his mask down to ease the heaves of breath. I find his stash of tablets smuggled in the shrug of his shoulders. In the morning, his bed is stripped down to the shiny plastic cover, his scant belongings parcelled up for no one to collect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So next we have Beth Calverley with Young Love.
Young Love. Since his stroke, he lives for her visits. He watches her tune the radio. She watches him flick through the pictures she brings. It is sad in an honest way, like an open mouth about to cry. Their smiles like radios, retuned countless times. A ritual of dials. She believes his mind is a thief who can bring back proof to his wife, staring at proof of a previous life, locked into patterns they packed for the past. But his courage has taught her to soothe her own throat as she swallows a lump of her heart. And she's ever so lovely, he boasts. All the nurses say so. A beauty to her bones. She remembers carving their names in oak, and now she picks up the pieces that splintered to trace the same initials in different wood.
Thank you so much, Beth. So next up we have Peter Draper with Peaches and Biscuits.
Peaches and biscuits. On a blue, bright day of breathtaking cold, we saw infinite value in things of transient beauty. Diamonds were shattered icicles on forest paths, promising all the world. And two old men closed their eyes to face the sun as they shared a picnic of peaches and biscuits. A mile below, the city, fully visible, clustered round the bay to watch a ferry draw a white line pointing to the horizon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. So bringing the evening to a close, we have Michael Carden with True Colours.
True colours. We are Pantone 300 and all the colours of the rainbow. We are every flag, faith and face, and we are colourblind. We are there for your blue moods, your red spots, your yellow fever. We are the brightest lights in your darkest hour and your green shoots of recovery. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of the readings that we have tonight, but there's more if you want to read it in the anthology itself. But I just want to say thank you to all our poets who have written today, who have read out to us today, and everybody who's helped make this happen, and everybody who's joined it. And, you know, the thought was going through my head, listening to all these, and, you know, we've had some runs, kind of dry runs where we've done readings together as a group. And, you know, the thought is you always want to kind of comment as you're going along because they're so rich and so diverse. But the only way really that I felt like I could pass comment on the words that we've heard is just to call out a couple of things that I've seen in the chat window. So I'll just call out a few of the phrases that I've seen come up that catch my eye as I go through before we then kind of wrap up and close the evening. So some of the phrases that I've seen: very evocative and rich with imagery, sensory and emotive. We are with you at every word of your reading. Such a privilege to join. Sending my love to you all. What a great set of readings. Gorgeous. I love the cadence of this. This reminds me that poetry is meant to be declaimed, not read in our heads. Breaking for tissues. Lots of memories of being a neonatal mum. Thank you. Fab performances all. Great to be with you and hear your voices, and all the lovely audience's comments. celebrating the trials, tribulations, and joys of life in the NHS. See you soon. How beautiful and pertinent to current times. Always so surprised by how the language of medicine is so artistic and creative when captivatingly crafted in such amazing poems. I was struck by this anthology and its poems. It's taken me over a week to read it, as I felt I needed to give it the time it deserved. There's so many more words I could read, but I'm not going to read any more. Please do continue the conversation for a couple of minutes in the chat window as we wrap up. Some final comments I want to say before handing over to Louise and to Katie really is just to say, anybody can write a poem, you know, and these are wonderful poems that have come from all corners of the NHS. And we're now inviting you guys, the general public, the people who experience the NHS, to submit your poems back to us as well, as a way to say thank you, to mark your respect, whatever it means to you, whatever you want to say. So we've set up a website to do this. It's www.poetryfornhs.co.uk. That's www.poetryfornhs.co.uk. That is also where the video of this evening's readings will go once we've crunched it and popped it up onto YouTube for all to share and come and see. And that's also where any poems that are submitted will be published. So you submit it to that website, it gets published on the website, and it's all held there as a wonderful space to remind us of you know, the great work that's happening and how we thank these wonderful people for what they're doing. Again, if there are any comments on Twitter, please do share them there. It's you know, hashtag poetry for NHS. Let's see if there's anything out there. Hopefully we'll have some coverage in the media after this, who knows? If not, that doesn't matter, because this has been beautiful in its own right. And for those who arrived late, perhaps on a second attempt, I just wanted to apologise again for the very short technical hitch we had at the beginning. We had exceeded our room capacity, so we had to quickly go through an upgrade process. But I hope nobody feels like they left out. And if we do, anybody is aware of anybody who feels like they may have missed something, let's make sure we get the video over to them so that they can see it afterwards. I think that's all I need to say. It's been wonderful being the host. And at this point, I think I'm going to hand over to Louise and Katie for any final words on their part before we close the room.
Thank you, Matt. So I'm not going to say much, because what could I add? One thing I'm going to say is, if you're not using gallery view to kind of see as many of our contributors as possible, switch gallery view back on. It will become apparent why I'm telling you to do that in a moment. So very quick thank yous from me. Wonderful contributors. So I'm nothing to do with the anthology. That's all other people's work, but I have friends who have work in the anthology, and I really, really wanted to help it reach more people, because I think the work is absolutely stunning. So thank you to the poets for their readings tonight. You've been vulnerable and brave, and your words are beautiful. Thank you to Katie, Deb and Nadia, who made the anthology a reality. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Joe, and another friend of mine, Gordon, who helped us out with the recording sessions. We could not have done this without you. It's not a one-person job. You have been stunning. And I feel like I've been invited to a party where all the cool kids are, or maybe I've gate crashed it or something. I don't know. Why did you let me in here? So thank you. And let's finish up the way that we finish every meeting that we have. We all do jazz hands. So that's why I said put it on gallery view, everyone. And at that point, we'll end the meeting. Well, you know, at that point, because I suspect people want to get to bed, but thank you for joining us. Continue to talk about poetry, particularly what you've heard tonight, and jazz hands, everyone, because we've been amazing. Whey! But thank you for joining us. Continue to talk about poetry, particularly what you've heard tonight, and jazz hands, everyone, because we've been amazing.